Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to Fallout 4. So, we are hanging out at Graygarden today, and I've built a little guard post. And I thought this would make a good little video as it kind of fits into the right length quite nicely. And is a really handy little structure or concept that you can kind of apply to a lot of different settlements as well. So they're useful little things to build. Add a little bit of flavour to your walls and a little bit of defensive benefit as well. So, let's take a look at where we are, if you need a reminder. Here we go, Graygarden. So, just above the freeway here, about a third of the way down the map, not too bad. There's Vault 111 and Sanctuary all the way up at the top there. And we've got Boston just sort of towards our right. There's Cambridge area there, and making our way down towards Diamond City, which is always a bit further south than I remember. There we go. So before we dive in, let's have a quick look at the mods, just so you can scroll through, hit the pause button if you'd like to. The stuff with the tick marks, obviously, are the ones that are currently active. Everything else is either used for general playthroughs or other saves, but the ones with ticks are the stuff you need for the building. Incidentally, the scrapping mod, scrap here or scrap at settlement if you're on another one, probably turn that one off while you're doing some building because it tends to interfere with things, but you can turn it back on afterwards and it will be as if you never disabled it. It's quite handy. So, here we are in the corner. I would normally suggest being a little bit further back from a corner than this, because you can see Fallout 4 is really kind of got a fairly hard line on the edge of that build zone, so you get outside it starts to cause issues. And a little bit of room to play around on the outside of walls is a good idea, but because of the lay of the land here and the positioning, and just sort of over that corner, there is a spawn point for enemy attacks. It's kind of handy to have something tucked in this corner. Also, the field is just behind us, and I'm going to need to maximise the space there as well. So this will eventually be my adhesive and fertiliser farm. So, with a big slope like this, we're going to need some height in order to keep the bad guys out and also to be able to kind of see as far up the hill as possible. So we're going to use these scaffolds, get the second one on the top there. I'll be swapping out this front section in a second. Incidentally, if by some strange happenstance you don't have all the DLCs, the Game of the Year edition tends to be dirt cheap these days. And they're definitely worth having because this lot of stuff comes from the Contraptions workshop. There's so many good bits in there. So we're going to get some stairs on here because figuring out how to get up to that height and then get back down again without taking up too much room is a bit of an issue. One could use the prefab scaffolding for this, I think. I didn't even try, but it looks to be about the right size. But it's much more fun to build your own, I think. And you can kind of control where the stairs go a bit more. You can sort of see the path coming down from the train tracks there, sort of in front of us, and I kind of wanted to avoid blocking that too much. Somewhat failed, because I also want to avoid blocking the field, but it kind of works with the stairs a little bit further back. You can kind of get around a little bit, as we'll see in a moment. So, I've got some stairs in there. The stairs are really handy, actually, to kind of figure out exactly where to put the next bit of the scaffolding, which I'd forgotten. Remembering a lot of things coming back to Fallout 4 these days. Not quite remembering the controls yet, though. Apparently. So we're going to grab another stair, get up the top here. Kind of like that this one's fully connected all the way through, whereas the other one isn't. Sort of variety and variations and a bit of randomness add to the scrappy vibe, which I like. We'll get some floors on here, so we've got somewhere to stand. And there are specific sets of railings that go with the scaffolding, but I'm going to try and mix this up, use some of the wooden railings, stuff like that, as well as some of the modded bits and pieces as well, just for the sake of a bit of variety and, once again, scrappiness. So we'll throw a few bits up top here. Yep, that should be okay. Yeah, there we go, a bit of variety there. And I had a bit of awkwardness trying to get a railing on this side here. Decided to go for a fairly basic one in the end. There we go. But the stairs are getting in the way, basically, so we'll drag those off. And just stick that back in. Now they'll snap back. Problem solved. All about that build order. Much like in Fallout 76, except in Fallout 76 you couldn't move the stairs. It's so nice to have some of those little touches like that that are not present in 76 I do miss when I'm over there. Fun to be back in Fallout 4. These are those scaffolding railings I mentioned earlier. I don't want to overdo it with them because I kind of want... we're trying to avoid uniformity here. We want sort of weird variety and messiness to get that kind of wasteland vibe. But by the time I've built up loads of bits of wall and stuff around this, it kind of won't matter so much. It'll camouflage the excessive number of railings that match a little bit. So there we go, got a decent view up the hill there. Should be able to fire on anything that might spawn off in that corner. So, up next, we're going to start by putting a gate on here, and this is going to basically be our back gate. The other side of the greenhouse actually works a little bit better for kind of a front entrance. It says in big air quotes. But for a little back gate here, this works quite nicely. So, we'll nudge this just over to the right there. I will have to move the, well, might have to move, the fast travel target, because I think it arrives somewhere over this side. But, just want to make sure that this gateway is going to line up with the kind of the path that's in the ground there, in sort of in situ beforehand, just for that kind of visual aesthetic, and it kind of makes sense, you know. I will have to do some work to polish up the pathing though. That should be easy enough to fix at some point in the future. I'm going to carefully drop that in. That looks about the right spot in terms of the little pathway running through. It's a bit wonky though, which on the whole isn't a massive problem, but it's a bit too wonky there. The other thing is you can see that left-hand end is floating a little bit. I don't want to sink it down too far, because if the lintel, not the lintel, is the bottom of the door, goes into the ground too much, you'll see the door that I'm going to put on there clipping through when you open and close it, and we can avoid that quite nicely in Fallout 4, so that's what we're going to do. We'll have that slight bit of floating, and we'll solve the problem by sticking a cinder block underneath it. And these things are wonderfully convenient, especially in this game. And we just find one that's going to suit. This one's a little excessive, so we'll use a couple of these from the look of that. 2 should do the job. And provide a nice little bit of support. So there's our 2 cinder blocks. We're going to just slightly offset them, just for a slightly more organic look. Grab our concrete pillar. And just use the group select to move it into place. Very handy technique, this one. If you need a refresher or are unfamiliar with the techniques, I will link my sort of settlement building technique videos for Fallout 4 somewhere around. They are old, so strap in for that one. But they do have good information in them, so it is quite handy. But yeah, once we can actually see what we're doing, we should be okay. And this bottom section, the bottom cinder block, is actually working on the top one like the rug glitch does. So it's bypassing the collision on the top one, which means we're just dropping in nice and neat like that. And the thing looks nice and supported. Cool. So, up next, we're going to need to get some additional barricades around the back there. I'm going to start with a big chunk of this shack wall. Couldn't rug glitch this one even if I wanted to, because it's a snapping item and it doesn't work on those. But the pillar glitch and the group select, that sure will. So we'll grab our pillar, make sure it is lower than the bottom of the wall. Now we can just move that into place and sink it down a little bit. So the idea is to have this sit nice and close to the scaffolding there, sink it into the ground so it looks nice and supported, and gives that kind of scrappy ramshackle look, and also stops any bad guys from just running straight through. Or shooting straight through, either or, neither's a good thing really. There we go, a little bit of careful positioning, we'll get that in there. Need a little bit of trial and error sometimes with these, just to get used to eyeballing them, but that went okay, to be honest. These angles are always a bit of an issue. So, we'll carry on this principle. I'm going to use a half shack wall here. A bunch of this stuff has been added by Unlock Settlement Objects, which is a fantastic mod that gives you a heck of a lot of bits and pieces that are scattered all over the game world, but not generally available in the vanilla menus. So, it's also available on all platforms as well, so that's one of the good things with these mods. Either they're available on all platforms, or something very, very similar is available on PlayStation if the actual mod isn't. So I'm not shutting anybody out with the stuff I'm using here, which I wanted to avoid. There we go. Got that one in there. Nice. Now we'll move on to the next one. This is actually a basic piece. And again, this one's a snapping one, so it would have to be the group select here. But that's fine, because that's what I want to do anyway. I'll just carefully get that one up against the edge here. Go for the corrugated metal there, just to mix up those textures a little bit. That lined up. Make sure it's not too high and looks supported at the bottom. Cool. So, we have got one tiny little gap here between that piece of metal and the gateway there. And I'm going to plug this with a piece that we don't have in Fallout 76 rather, that I really miss. This one. Because for little gaps like that, this little scrap of warehouse wall is absolutely fantastic. And I believe this is also from the Workshop DLC. The Contraptions Workshop specifically, rather. So definitely worth having. Yeah, I miss that piece. It's so useful for little bits like this, and with its sort of holes in it and the wooden frame on show and stuff, it's really nice and scrappy. So it's just the little things that you miss with the switch over sometimes, you know. But it's good to be back for that. So we'll carefully group select this one in. Again, just plug that gap. Doesn't matter if things are at weird heights, because, well, that's kind of the idea, really. It looks like a barricade that's just been thrown together. That should about do it. Nice, look at that. Scrappy as you could like. Coming together now, but we're going to need a little bit more height on this, I think. If we have a look at this from the outside, you can see you could quite easily just stand and shoot over. So if I can do it, you can bet super mutants and the like sure can. So we could do with a little bit of extra height. I mean, it'll still come around the edge, but, you know, doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to get the right impression. So, we see Dogmeat's having a bit of pathing issues there, so I'll have to grab an invisible rug and stick it in the doorway so he can get through. But we'll worry about that another time. For now, we're going to group select in some railings just to add a little bit of extra height on the corner here. Now, I can't quite reach high enough here. The pillar is tall enough, if we have a look at the bottom of it, but it's just a little too high up here, so we'll drop that down a bit. And group select again when we get it. I want to be as far away from these really as possible, so I've got as much reach as possible. I could use a conduit to extend my reach, but I don't really need to right now. Just a little bit of extra space so I can reach around those poles on the scaffolding. Really, really helps. And there we go. That should look more or less like it's nailed to the wood at the top. Cool. Should add that little bit of extra height we need, and a little bit of textural variety. Carry on the idea by grabbing this railing here. There we go. Do the same thing, get as much height as we can on that, as much reach as well. And that'll contrast a little bit with the corrugated metal on this side, so it should work quite nicely there. Carefully work that one in. It should look like it's nailed to the wooden frame quite nicely, or something to that effect. Does the job, doesn't it? Look at that. Much better. Nearly there now, at least for this structure. Obviously, I'm going to wall off the whole of this place eventually, but we'd be here for quite some time if I did that, so we'll touch on a few other bits and pieces in another video. But we're going to kind of extend a little bit out here so you can kind of get the vibe of how this structure is going to work as part of a larger set of walls. So I'm going to grab this junk fence, go for the one with the barbed wire at the top, because it's a little different from the ones we have available in 76. And I was going to try and group like this, as we can see, but we have a slight collision issue, which I'd kind of forgotten about. The edges of these don't like to sit too close to other wall pieces, so time to break out the rug glitch, which we haven't had to use yet today. So, over to the USO tools section, where we can find some invisible rugs. You can use the normal basic vanilla ones if you want to, if you don't have the USO installed. These are exactly the same, they're just invisible versions. And we'll just grab our wall here. We're on a little bit of a slope here, so there should be a little bit of a step up onto the rug. Not a lot of room here. You should see that just pop up as it goes green, more or less. There we go, that's it. So now it's on the rug and it's gone green. We can move the rug instead of the wall, and it'll bypass the collision on the junk fence there. Combine that with the group select and the pillar, and we can sink it into the ground as well, so we don't have any floating issues. There we go, set those nice and close to each other. That should do it. And I don't need to remove the rug because it's under the ground anyway. And because it's invisible, even if it wasn't, I wouldn't have to look at it. Nice. So there we go. That should about do the trick there. There's one last thing I do want to do before we do a kind of little finish walk around, which is convenient as the sun is starting to set. I want to put a little set of steps in this doorway, which we don't really need, because you can walk through it just fine, although Dogmeat's having some issues. But it just kind of finishes it off in a nice way. This is a set of stairs that I wish we could do this technique in 76, but there are numerous reasons that we can't. Top of the list being we don't actually have this set of stairs. But these are old friends, this particular staircase. Just 2 steps there. We'll grab it with the pillar, group select. Now we can just sort of line this up, sink it into the ground, just up against the edge of the door frame there, that bottom edge. That should about do it. Grab the pillar out of the way. Look at that. That just finishes the whole thing off kind of nicely and gives us a nice little step through. Perfect. So, let's have a look at this sort of finished thing with a little bit more light, shall we? Here we go. Starting off in the greenhouse, because why not? There we go, just a little structure in the corner there. Handy little guard post type design. As to see, there's countless variations you can do, and doubtless I'll be putting some other variations into the walls elsewhere as we extend them. But I thought this came together as a nice little video idea, structure idea for something that's kind of practical. And as I say, there is an enemy spawn point, so when Graygarden gets attacked, they will often spawn up in that corner, just up the hill a little bit there. So having a guard post up here, maybe putting a turret on it, or running up the top and firing from there yourself, should help to keep the bad guys at bay, once I've got the rest of the walls in anyway. Yeah, I do like the look of this. It's kind of nice and ramshackle, sits together quite nicely, but still has that thrown together vibe. You see the wall at the back there, just kind of, the bits of wood contrast with the metal quite nicely, add mixture of textures. Plenty of height on it. And once we extend this out, we're basically going to just use the upper section, because the build area does drop down the slope a bit further at the far side there. But we might do something with the overpass as well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll have to extend out. I added one extra wall on this side, which is the same thing I did on the other side, but you know, over here. And it does give the rest of that vibe a little bit. Sort of see how that's going to fit into a larger wall once we extend it out. I do quite like the look. Nice and practical. See, look at those stairs. They just give that door a nice kind of finished vibe that wouldn't otherwise be there without them. I'm going to take a quick swing up the tower here. And we'll get a decent view from the top. My basic plan for this place is to turn it into an adhesive and fertilizer farm. That way I can have plenty of adhesive for crafting guns and the like. And also have plenty of jet to craft up and sell for caps, because I'm going to need it if I'm going to start building again. Which apparently we are. So there we go. So you can just crouch down a little bit, got a nice bit of cover, and you can still fire over. It's just what you want. So there we go, one little guard post over at Graygarden. Hope you folks liked that one. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes. I do very, very much appreciate. Down below the video, got social media links, merch store and channel memberships, and the blue join button as well, if you'd like to hit those and support the channel that way. I humongously appreciate that, massively helps out. Huge thanks to everyone who's done that. And if you get a chance, join us for live streams as well. We are, of course, playing Fallout 4, we're playing Fallout 76, and we've got a few other bits and pieces on the go as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.